Hey, buddy. I think he's happy that I'm home. Oh, look at this guy. Tony. How are you, pal? Oh, man. Hey guys, Stan Dicks here reporting for Press for Truth. I must say it's good to be back in beautiful British Columbia with my two awesome little dogs and my beautiful wife. Hello. I'm back after quite a long and extensive trip, and I'm sure these guys are quite happy about that. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what the experience was like there at this particular Bilderberg. It was, let's just say, rather intense, unlike any other Bilderberg I've ever covered. So I want to talk about some of the struggles that presented itself throughout this one, some of the things I learned, some of the people we found, and most importantly, where I think this coverage needs to go in the very near future. Now, I must say right off the top, I was excited about how things were potentially going to go, because upon checking into the Bilderberg Hotel, I pretty much bumped into Oscar Stenstrom. He was checking in at the same time as me. I wasn't completely positive that it was him, but I went, to my friend Josh, and I was like, is that who I think it is? And he was like, that's Oscar Stenstrom. And I was like, okay, confirmed, that's definitely him. And the reason why this is significant is because we filmed him last year while he was Sweden's chief negotiator for getting Sweden into NATO. He was there with the former Prime Minister of Sweden, walking around, as the, chief negotiator for NATO, clearly discussing this particular issue, because just 9 months later, Sweden did officially join. And, he was clearly there meeting with her. So as soon as I saw him, I was like, okay, this may be a sign that we're, this is a good start. We're going to get some good stuff, because he wasn't on the list last year. And then he was obviously there. He negotiates Sweden's NATO bid. He is successful in doing so, and then he's back the following year. So immediately I was like, I wonder if this guy's going to show up on the list this year. And not only him, we ended up running into a number of people in that first day or two. There was the Prime Minister of Estonia, for example, who walked right past me, and I didn't know who she was at the time, but upon pausing the video frame in just the right frame, I noticed if I just zoom in, I could actually see her name tag, and you could read that this was indeed Kaja Kallas, the Prime Minister of Estonia. So it was like, okay, this is already starting to be promising. We also saw the CEO of the essentially Austria's bank meeting with this woman, goes by the last name of Wagner, who is nominated to be Europe's director of the CDC, essentially the Center for Disease and Control in Europe, meeting secretly off the record with a CEO of an Austrian bank. That should raise some flags. That should, raise some questions. But notably, she was also photoed meeting with the CEO of Warner Brothers Directory International. So just think about this for a sec. You've got the lady who is slated to be the next director of the CDC in Europe meeting with a Warner Brothers president off the record. And when you consider there's guys like Anthony Bourla was there this year, the head of Pfizer, you've got the future head of the CDC in Europe also meeting with members of Warner Brothers and major banksters. It looks to me that future pandemics are not necessarily off the table. And this is exactly why it's important to continue to document who's there, not only who's there, but who's talking to who, because that's when you can get a better idea of what they're actually talking about, because as we know, the so-called official agendas list and participants list has been made public in recent years, but this is just kind of a way for them to give off the image of transparency, when really it's more so like they're essentially hiding in plain sight. And so off the top, I was like, okay, we're starting to get some good stuff here. And if you saw the moment where we were actually detained, I put out a brief little video on Twitter explaining the moment we got detained for like 45 minutes. I'll get into that briefly, because that was one of the most intense interrogations by a military police that I've ever experienced. We essentially figured out, you know, long story short, every single year the Bilderberg group goes on a little trip, usually on the Saturday of their meetings. They will leave the building together in buses. They will go to some dinner or a gallery or a museum, some sort of event together. This year we didn't know where they were going to be going, so the only way to figure it out was to intercept the motorcades or any one of the many vans that were transporting the participants. So we took a chance, we hopped in a car, we drove around trying to see if we could spot one of them, and sure enough, we found one of the vans full of participants heading to the event. So we're like, let's trail them. So we started driving and following this particular van full of participants. We drove for like 40 minutes all the way to this place, which is essentially like the headquarters of the host of this particular event, which should have been a clue, you know, thinking back on it, you know, for us to be able to figure it out. But even if we had figured it out, there was no chance of getting anywhere near this thing. Unlike any other year, they had it on literal lockdown. There were like checkpoints with, you know, barricades going up that we drove directly into. And as I said, that was one of the most intense situations I've ever experienced, because these are military police with massive guns, looking extremely intimidating, because at this point they don't know who we are, what our intentions are, why we're there. They have to assume that we might be assassins or we might be terrorists, or, you know, they got to assume the worst, essentially. So they were treating us like as if we were those things. Now, once they dragged us out of the car, they searched our bags, they looked at our footage. I think they quickly started to determine that, okay, these guys aren't a threat, they are who they say they are. And pro tip, guys, you ever get into that situation, just be honest with them. We told them straight up. They're like, what are you doing here? Who are you? And we're like, hey, look, we're journalists. Yes, we followed the van here. We're hoping to take pictures. You know, there was a language barrier, but we're like, we're hoping to take pictures of politicians. Shout out to Charlie Skelton also, who was driving, because since he was the driver, he for the most part had to deal with their intense interrogations off the top. And he did a good job by saying, look, we're journalists, we're here to cover this high profile event. We're just trying to figure out if there's an area here where we can get photos of the participants. And as I said, once they essentially assessed that we were not a threat, they decided to let us go with the strict warning that if we're ever seen anywhere around here again, there's going to be serious trouble. So needless to say, it was impossible to get any questions in with these guys or to document them as they were walking around outside like we normally do. You know, this is the first time in my coverage of over 18 years that I've had such a difficult time of finding Bilderberg members. And speaking on that, there was a situation at the airport. Now, typically the airport is where we get all the gold. You know, this is where you can capture some of the people who might not be on the list. This is where you have a chance to potentially interview some of these guys or talk to them. In previous years, I've had many of these guys engage with me. So we're thinking this is our best opportunity to speak with some of these participants. And again, that was unlike any other experience I've had, because we did manage to locate the people we were looking for. The Bilderberg staff who walks the participants from their, you know, departure, you know, arrival area to their cars. But this year in particular, we watched them all day. 8, maybe 10 hours of watching them. at 4 different locations. It was a huge airport, and not once did we see them transport a Bilderberg member. It made absolutely no sense. The only thing that we could figure was the logistics of the airport were such that they were pulling them all through private channels, but that still doesn't explain why we saw all the people, you know, that we normally see, and none of them dealing with participants. Now, my friend Josh happens to think, and I'm starting to think he may be correct on this, that this particular year there was a diversion tactic. Look, I've been covering this for 18 years. My first Bilderberg that I covered was in 2006. Over that period, I've gone to 11 of these conferences. And these are extremely high profile, powerful and influential people who we are getting cameras in their faces and asking those very difficult questions that nobody else is willing to ask. It's very possible that after, you know, 18 years of doing this and 11 consecutive, pretty much, Bilderberg conferences, that not only are they onto us and who I am and what my intentions are, but they are most likely to the point where they are creating diversions for the participants to not have to deal with any kind of press. So this looks to be like the new tactic that they've employed here, because I've gotten to the point now where I'm pretty much pegged. They know exactly who I am and what I'm there to do, and it's very easy to avoid me. So this is why I think we need to talk a little bit about where we're going to go in the near future with covering things like Bilderberg, which I think is incredibly important. You know, these guys are similar, if you're just hearing about this, to like the WEF in Davos, only the participants are even more powerful and influential, and they're operating under even more strict of secrecy. So you may have noticed the amount of people covering Bilderberg over the years is shrinking and shrinking. And now we're getting to the point where the few remaining people who go are completely pegged. They know exactly what our tactics are, and they know exactly how to avoid us. So I think we're getting onto that time where it's really time to pass the torch, so to speak. We really need other activists and journalists out there to take up that torch and to get out to these types of things and to, you know, help us expose Bilderberg. I know it's easier said than done. It often requires, you know, things like travel, but as I said, I think this is one of the most powerful and secretive organizations that is deserving of being exposed. So really, this video is kind of a call to action. You know, I was disappointed to see the lack of journalists there, the lack of coverage, and the challenges and the difficulties that we faced were, you know, significant. I have good reason to believe that the meeting will be held next year in Sweden, potentially. So, you know, there is time now to start planning for this, because, as I said, I don't want this to just fade away into obscurity. They already know who I am. They have me pegged. We need more guys to pick up your cameras, pick up that torch, our greatest weapon in the information war, and get out there and start documenting these guys. I mean, as I said, this is like, you want to talk about the tip of the pyramid, so to speak. These are the guys we're talking about. When you speak of all the, you know, things that we talk about, they often use the term they do this, they are the ones doing this. Well, Bilderberg is very much they. And there is an inner circle within the inner circle, and I've discussed that many times. If you haven't seen my Bilderberg documentary, be sure you check it out. It's called The Turning Point. It is available on my website, pressfortruth.ca. But we break all this stuff down. But I think we are now at that point where we need to step it up a notch, and we need you guys, the viewers here who, you know, are interested in doing this type of work as well, to take up that torch, get out there and start kind of doing the work that guys like, you know, Jim Tucker, Daniel Estulon, Alex Jones, myself, and many others have kind of paved the way for. As I said, it's getting more and more difficult for guys like us now to do it. So we need a whole new generation of activists and journalists to take up the torch. So I hope to see you there next year. If you're watching this video and you got inspired by my call to action, and I do end up seeing you at one of these, please tell me about it. Say, I'm only here because I saw that vlog where you said, you know, we need to step up to the plate here and, you know, get serious about, you know, fighting the New World Order. You know, you want to take it head on. You want to deal with the guys who are pulling the strings, the puppet string pullers. This is where it's at. So this is all about a call to action today, guys. You can contact me at dan@pressfortruth.ca if you want to coordinate for next year's meeting, if you're actually serious about coming out, and we can do that. And we'll start working with, you know, people who are maybe a little less likely to be, you know, pegged right off the top of being there. So, as I said, I think this is an important call to action today. As we saw, you've got people like, you know, the future head of the CDC in Europe meeting with like Warner Brothers presidents and CEOs of, you know, like banksters. They are clearly planning for something major. Wars are on the agenda this year. If you haven't seen my coverage, guys, I did, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe 8 videos over the past week, breaking down a lot of the things that were on the agenda. 5 out of the 13 topics were war orientated. And then on top of that, you've got, like, you know, vaccine experts and future CDC, you know, directors meeting with, you know, Warner Brothers presidents and European banksters. Guys, it's clear that this is the place where they get things done, and this is the place where people like us have to be. So first of all, if you appreciate my efforts to continue to expose things like Bilderberg, thank you for your support. Thank you for your financial support. Thank you for your words of encouragement. It's all very, very greatly appreciated, but I want to say we need to do more. We need to take it one step further, and I need you guys to take up that torch, grab your cameras and start coming out, joining the fight. Get involved, man. we need more in this, because we're up against a behemoth to say the least, and I'm not about to stop. There's no way I'm going to, you know, discontinue my coverage of Bilderberg or feel intimidated by doing so, or, you know, knowing that I'm already pegged. I'll still try to get anything I can, but I think it's going to be a lot easier if we have more of us there next year. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If that's something you might be interested in actually doing, and as I said, we can discuss these things in the lead up to next year's meeting. But just wanted to break that down for you guys. It was challenging, to say the least, this particular year, but you never know what you're going to get until you go. And I'm so glad that I did go, and I am glad to be back here with my beautiful wife and my 2 dogs in beautiful British Columbia. So just glad I made it out of there safe and sound. Guys, if you do appreciate my coverage that I've brought from this particular Bilderberg conference, please check out that top link in the description below. This is my last video on it. I did put together a Go Get Funding campaign that hasn't even reached half of its goal, and that's okay. You know, I'm doing this work either way. But again, if it is something you appreciate, please check out that top link in the description below and pick up the torch. Dust off that camera or whatever you have to do and start getting active, because if I can do this, you know, going to this thing for 18 years, 11 conferences, I've made a documentary film about it, I think you guys can do so as well, and we'll have a much better chance at defeating this thing if we have more of you on our side. So just wanted to mention all of that, guys. Stay tuned. I'm gonna, obviously, now that I'm back, get back into the swing of things. A lot of things going on in the world that I need to catch up on and report on. So I'm gonna have more video reports coming very, very soon. here at Press for Truth. So thank you for watching, guys. Thank you for your support, and stay tuned. Gonna have more video reports coming very soon. This is Dan Dicks reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.